All right, well, hello everyone and welcome to the AMC panel on careers. Today we're just gonna take a moment to introduce ourselves and then we will get into some questions and hopefully leave some time for your questions if you have any. So we will each take around 2 minutes to introduce ourselves and just briefly touch on our career. So Ted, do you want to start and we'll go down?
Sure, why not? My name's Ted. I'm a professional graphic designer. I design for AMCSI and I've run my design company for over 20 plus years. I was the production coordinator for a previous event where we pulled 20 to 30,000 people in 3 days. And we traveled all over the country with that show. And I also have other website design clients as well. One of them is a Rolls-Royce and Bentley client, where I basically he would tell me, I got 6 cars, you need to go pull them out of the lot, take them to the park, take photos of them, and put them on the website to sell them. So I made sure I wore my tie-dye shirts just because it was fun driving through the towns and having people see me. Because I treated them like they were mine. So that's pretty much what I do for a living.
I'm Matthew Cavada, and I'm on the board for AMCSI. Professionally, I came down to Atlanta to attend graduate school, got a law degree and a theology degree, and then I've been working as a lawyer in one capacity or another since then, so about 9 years now. Over that time, I've spent 1 year each working for 2 judges, one of whom is a federal judge here in Georgia, one of whom is on the Georgia Supreme Court. And I spent about 4 years working as a public defender. So I was a trial attorney for people who couldn't afford representation and were charged with crimes. I tried cases ranging from juvenile truancy all the way up to murder in adult court. So I currently am back in the academy. I am back at Emory teaching in the law and religion program. I mostly teach criminal law and some constitutional law. So I taught freedom of speech last semester. I'll be teaching criminal procedure in the fall and do research and writing on legal history, law and religion, and criminal law. So that's me, and I have the next session as well. If you want to hear more about the details of that, I'll be doing a lecture on disability law at 4 o'clock right here on the Americans with Disabilities Act in this room. So right after this.
Hi. Are you able to hear me? Okay. So my name's Rihanna. I work as a trauma therapist at a children's advocacy center. So a children's advocacy center is a center where children who have experienced abuse are victims of human trafficking or anything that has to do with the criminal justice system as a victim. They come to do an interview to be used in court so that they don't have to keep going and talking to multiple different people. So I work on the MDIT team with law enforcement, DA, medical team, all different types of people, and I connect families to mental health services. I advocate for their mental health services, but I also provide it through trauma therapy.
You need the microphone.
I got you.
You need to leave it on the table. Just leave it on the table.
Okay.
Please.
There we go.
I'm Alex Spitzer, and I'm a choreographer and dancer in the Atlanta area. I'm currently working with Beacon Dance here in Atlanta and on their board of directors as their secretary for the last 10 years. And more recently, with a group I've been working with, I became on the board of directors for National Dance Society, which is a national organization, and I'm on their President's Advisory Committee and also co-chair for the Performing Arts Council for the organization. I am also still do some shows on my own for Spitzer Dance Company, which is my own company I've had since 1992. My training goes back to Texas Women's University, where I got a Bachelor of Arts degree in dance. As far as anyone knows, I was the first dancer in a wheelchair to get a 4-year bachelor's degree in dance. And I've also had training with companies in Atlanta, Dallas, and New York. I also studied at Southern Methodist University and Collin College in Texas. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So, Brittany Hernandez-Wilson, and I am currently working as the Equity and Justice Director at a disability organization called the ARC Minnesota. I love public speaking and have the honor to be able to teach on things like ableism in language, disability justice, and really enjoy doing that. I also am a passionate organizer, and so I have worked on some legislation, and 2 bills that I was a part of this year passed the legislature, which is really fun. It's always exciting when that happens. One of those bills was a teacher training on ableism that must be taught by someone who is disabled. And so folks who are getting their teacher licenses or relicense will learn about ableism, which it was the first time that that word was even written into law in Minnesota. So that was really felt exciting. But I am just a disability advocate and activist, and love doing that type of work. So.
Hello, my name is Tracy Schock, and I do casework in Ohio's developmental disability system of care. In my current job, I interview adults who have developmental intellectual disabilities about their current waiver services, and I find out whether or not they're happy with how things are. And if they're not, I write a report and tell their ongoing caseworker what needs to change. And I also do eligibility determination assessments for Ohio's system. So it's like a formalized assessment where I get to meet with cute little kids all day and assess if they have enough limitations to get services. In my previous jobs, I did actual casework all day, every day, where I served kids from ages 3 to 22 and helped them and their parents access services from Ohio's DD system.
Okay. Wonderful. So the first question will be to Rihanna, Tracy, Matt, and Ted. And this question is, what inspired you to choose your current career path? Did AMC play a role in your decision-making process? And Rihanna, you can start.
Okay. So the answer to that, yes, AMC did play a role in kind of where I ended up career-wise. My dream job was to be in the FBI as a special agent, but obviously I wouldn't be able to pass that physical exam that they had, so I had to be creative and look at other ways that I could work with family, with the FBI, with the criminal justice system. And so I found the Children's Advocacy Center. I got my master's degree in social work, and I started working there first as a mental health coordinator, and I just went on then to do trauma therapy because I love just being a safe space for people. I think everyone deserves to have that space to be 100% authentic and true to themselves, but also every person, I think, struggles with a level of feeling unworthy based off of things that have happened in their life. So just giving them that space to feel valued and that they have worth is super important to me. So that kind of led me to where I'm at today.
In a direct way, no. I actually never even took disability law in law school, which I regret in hindsight. But I did not have interest in directly doing disability advocacy, anything along those lines. I liked public speaking, I liked politics. Those were the kinds of things that pushed me into law as a career path. In an indirect way, though, from a very early age, I had a sense that people would perceive me as having a lot of limitations because of my disability, that they would see my body and make judgments about what I was capable of. So I know from a very early age, I got used to talking with confidence, engaging with people who are a lot older than me, talking about things that I needed, becoming a self-advocate. Those were the kinds of values that my parents instilled in me very early on. I'd be lying if I said that that didn't impact certainly the skills that I bring to the workplace now. I mean, I know a lot of attorneys, I have a lot of students who are very shy still. Occasionally you'll get some big extrovert who wants to be a trial attorney, but for me, there was no great nerves about getting up in court, about speaking with judges, about even going to jails and talking to inmates. I just had that confidence and that public speaking experience that made a lot of that side of the job fairly easy. My first trial, was it nerve-wracking? Of course, but not for the same reasons that I think are true for a lot of people. I was just always very comfortable being out there and talking through, making an argument for, look, here's something that somebody needs, here's how we're going to get there together. That was very familiar for me. So that I attribute to my AMC, and that I think has served me pretty well. Likewise in the classroom, I'm not concerned about being in a classroom with 30, 40 students there listening to what I'm saying. I feel like that's pretty old hat at this point in my life. So
Mine pretty much wasn't, AMC didn't play a role in it. My career pretty much chose me. I was started drawing when I was 6. And it started out drawing just video game covers and things like that. And I kept doing it because I enjoyed drawing in notepads, drawing in pads, drawing anything I could find, from cartoons to life drawing to Saturday lessons that later happened, where I would go every Saturday to a woman's house, and she would start professionally teaching me all the other mediums. And then what happened was, as a career, it changed to digital marketing and illustration. Because as an artist, as a painter or an illustrator, money is a lot tougher. It's tougher to make a career out of that. Whereas a graphic designer and learning web design and code, I was able to start my own company and start it based off of that knowledge with the artistic background behind it. And that was pretty much how I got started.
So I would say my AMC kind of did have an impact in what I chose to do, because I grew up in a place where most people's jobs were physical labor jobs. I grew up on a farm, so I didn't really have a lot of exposure to jobs that were computer-based that I could physically do. So when I was choosing what I was going to do in college, I had the notion I need to do something that I know I can physically do from the get-go. I wasn't going to try to pursue something that was just not going to be possible. And I kind of ended up in a field because I ended up getting a job because I needed a job, and it turned out to be something I absolutely loved, and working in Ohio's system of developmental disabilities turned out to be like fantastic from a career standpoint, and I love helping people.
Okay. So the next question is, can you share an obstacle you faced in your career and how you overcame it? And we can start with Tracy, Ted, Alex, and Rihanna.
So I would say one of the biggest obstacles that I had to overcome when I first started working was like the physical impact of actually spending 8 hours a day on my computer. I was definitely not anticipating that being a problem. But if I think about back in college, I was never really on my computer typing for 8 hours a day and having to do that. So I had a lot of bursitis in my shoulder that first 6 months that I was working, and it really impacted my ability to drive. And I'm still not sure how I got through that first 6 months, but I did. The bursitis eventually went away, and it just took a little bit of time to figure out which desk and which accommodations I needed to actually be able to work for 8 hours behind my computer and do all the other stuff I needed to do in my life. But thankfully I got through it, and zero gravity chairs are awesome, reasonable accommodations.
Well, the obstacles that I faced after graduating college, I went to a 4-year college in Philadelphia, and I took 2 majors. I majored in illustration and graphic design, and I was at a 3.9 level when I graduated. So the owners of the school sent me to the top agencies for interviews. And the third one that I went to, I was there, and the portfolio, we were going through my portfolio with the director, and the owner came down and he took one look at me and shook his head no to her. So this was the third interview that I had like this in Philly. And what I did was I got up and I said, I'm not sorry that I wasted your time. I'm sorry that you wasted mine. And I zipped up my portfolio and I went back to school the next day. And the owner of this college was not very pleased with me, to put it mildly, because he was putting his neck on the line for this interview. And he said, you know, what happened? And I told him, he goes, I can't believe this. And I said, no, this is a realistic avenue of my experiences with AMC. And at this point, he goes, so what are you going to do? He's like, because your work is here. Like, there's no reason why these agencies shouldn't be picking you up. And I said, well, I'm just going to start my own company. I said, I'm going to call the Courier Post, the local paper by me, become their graphic designer and teach them how to design ads. And then I'm going to, and in the process, work a 9 to 5 doing that, and at night start my company and build that. And then it grew into, from there I went to a magazine company where I was the production director for 4 other designers. We did 2 monthly publications plus a Limousine Digest trade show. And then it grew from there to a trade show management company for 16 years where I was their production coordinator. So I took a point of having the ability and being told no just because of the way I looked as a way of being like, okay, I'll show you. I'll just do it myself. And that was pretty much an obstacle that brought me here.
Is it me or her? Okay. Obstacles I've had through dance has been many through the years, being in an able-bodied dance world, and pretty much always in an able-bodied dance world, except for a couple of years. But one of the obstacles I think about the most is at the very beginning when it was my second year in college, and I had a modern dance class, and my teacher got surprised because she didn't know I was coming in her class. And even when she went to her boss, she goes, I got Alex in my class, what do I do? Oh, we can tell you what he can do. So what we did is that a few weeks after school started, we met at the library. I showed her a video of what I've done so far at that time and what I was wanting to do. And so she got to get to know me, I got to know her, and we got to work together and learn what I could do in class or what I thought I could do, and I could adapt into her class, which she was already teaching an able-bodied class, and she could learn what I could do to where she could adapt some things for me also. And within that, adaptations too, like for floor work, when you're on the floor, accommodations on the floor, I'd get on the platform, so I wouldn't have to be picked up off the floor. So I do the floor work and the floor stuff on the platform that's the same height as my wheelchair. And this has happened many times through the years in my dancing, whether in school or college or professionally, where I've had to work with the people, because a lot of times I was the first person in the wheelchair they've ever been around or worked with, and especially in dance. And so I have to adapt into what they're doing, and they also have to adapt to what I'm doing too. And it's this give and take that we both had. And that's, I think, one reason it's been pretty successful for me within the dance community. And so that's one of the obstacles I've been through. So thank you.
The main obstacle that I've faced throughout now working is definitely imposter syndrome is a huge one, just like doubting myself and doubting my ability to be successful. My brain has just a lot of lies that I think I picked up from society putting on me that I then didn't realize would impact my career. So I spent many times doubting myself and doubting my ability, and that has held me back a lot. But within this past year, my main thing has been like, I'm not going to let this hold me back. Like, I'm going to do the best that I can do because that's what I deserve, and that's what I think everyone deserves. Like, you can do it, and that imposter syndrome that's in your brain are just lies. But you can find out a way to do it, even if it looks different than your peers.
Absolutely. I want to clap for that.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like imposter syndrome is not spoken about enough. So thanks for mentioning that. The next question is, what types of supports has been most beneficial to you in your career? And let's go Alex, Matt, and then myself.
I guess support for me has also been my teachers too. Like I mentioned, my modern dance teacher, Tanya, she was a support for me through my 9 years in college because I went part-time, and she was also a professional dancer before she taught. So she's like a support system for me through the years and trying to find things and find ways to help me find ways to make things work, or if I was having a problem, someone that I could go talk to and ask and at least talk things out so I could figure it out for the future. Then also I had a very supportive counselor with Texas Rehab Commission. He helped pay for my schooling and helped supported me through the years when I was in college and got to live on my own at that time, and who was supportive of me. And it's different professionals through the years who have supported me through the years and helped me through the years. So it takes building that professional contacts, and like joining the National Dance Society, a lot of that went back to my college years because my professor was the president of the society when I joined. And so a lot of them already knew of my background when I came in, and so it helped them see me as a dancer and respect my background too. So what you do when you build professionally, it can help you down the road years later too.
I could certainly talk a lot about teachers, about my wife, about family, about those kinds of things. One thing that really stood out to me from a disability perspective, though, was just a sense of the freedom that comes from being the only person who's been in some of the places I've been in. I remember being in court once and saying, well, is it okay if I tip back my wheelchair? Like, what's the etiquette here? And whoever it was, I don't even remember who it was I asked, just said, I think you're the one who gets to decide what the etiquette's going to be like. Like, we just don't have that much experience with it, so if you think it's okay, go for it. Just like do it. And so same thing in the classroom, like my style and how I choose to lecture, how I use my body language, when I move, all those kinds of things. I just kind of decide that, it's my classroom, there's nobody else sitting in here with me, I'm just going to kind of do it, and I guess I've got the flexibility to do this. So that freedom to just figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to talk to my students about my disability? How am I going to advocate for them? That we need soap dispensers that can reach in the bathrooms. How am I going to do that? It's up to me. And so that is sort of a lack of support in a way, in that I don't have a great model, but it also is kind of liberating in that I can just do what I want until somebody tells me I can't, I guess. So, or until I decide that I'm not satisfied that way. So I've appreciated that kind of freedom. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. I just picture you laying back in court. That's awesome.
If they're going to keep us there for 10 hours waiting on a jury, then eventually I'm going to have to tip back.
Yes, for sure. So for me, I feel like other disabled people have been some of the greatest resources and support throughout my career, whether it's accessing healthcare services while earning competitive wages, or even just figuring out how to get a vehicle. I'm really fortunate enough to be able to drive with my hands. And so other disabled folks have been instrumental in just teaching me the ways of the world. But also I think what's been really powerful in activating me is just learning about disability rights and understanding that I have rights, that I have the right to advocate for myself, that at work I have the right to ask for a reasonable accommodation. And I think that understanding that we have rights can be really powerful when we're asking the world to accommodate us in some way. And also just learning about disability history. When you know how far our community has had to come to have the ADA, to have the right to be in school, and all these things, I I think for me it really hits home that those rights could also be taken away as well. And I feel some responsibility to help others in the community, right, get there too. And so I'm getting away from the question, but learning my history has also just really helped to activate me in that. And I think also just having folks at work that I feel like I can trust is also really been supportive for me in my career. I am one of the only people of color at my job, one of the only people with disability at my places that I've worked, and I think that feeling lonely and isolated is something that also can just come with being disabled, right? So trying to find people that I can trust has been helpful and supportive in my career as well. Okay, so the next question is, what advice would you give to others with AMC pursuing their career goals? Let's start with Ted, Alex, me, and then Rihanna.
I would say my advice would be, in my career, know your worth and know your skills. Because in mine, we have to pick our rates, and what proves my rates is my skills and my worth. I know my abilities as far as what I can design and what I can produce at the professional level that I do them, and that comes a long way. And as a business owner, the other advice is find a trusting attorney and a trusting accountant, because with a disability in a corporate setting, you will get tested, and I don't mean on just your profession. I've been tested on simply just am I knowledgeable enough, without even seeing the work yet. And that is definitely something that takes a toll, and it can easily do that make you start to believe this. And if you know your worth and you have that confidence within yourself, then it's never our responsibility. It was never mine, the way I see it, to prove that to anybody else. My work proves it. And so I would say stay on your passion. You will be tested, and it's just stay on your passion. If you know what you're doing and you know you can handle it well, don't ever let somebody tell you you can't.
For me, I'd say follow your dreams and go for it and persevere. It takes a lot of perseverance to go through, especially if you're going through more of a unique situation like I did. And same with anything also, but persevering through it all and just, going strong as you can and having your family behind you if you can. My parents have supported me through the years, and I love them for that. And just chase your dream as much as you can and go for it. And it's possible. And just see what you can do. You run into some walls, hey, just bounce off those and go to the other ones that want to work with you. Because some schools didn't want to work with me. Some did. I found the ones that did. And that's the same with companies too. So just keep on chasing your dreams, and you can do it.
That's right. I would say don't take no for an answer. I think one of the biggest and most tragic misconceptions about having a disability is that you can't work, that our systems won't allow you to work. And after I graduated from college, didn't work for over a year because I thought my Social Security is going to get cut off and I won't be able to work. And most states have a Medicaid buy-in program where you pay some type of premium and where you're allowed to earn competitive wages. And making the transition from being on Social Security to working can be a scary one, but you can do it. I've been told so many times no, and I just keep fighting and just keep going to the next person because it should be our right to work and to earn money. Why should the government tell us how much money we can make just because I need this wheelchair or I'm forever, gonna be disabled? So I would say just to, know that there are pathways and that it's okay if you're the first one that's doing it, that you can do it, and to lean on people in our community when you need some encouragement, because I know that we will be here. And I would say find your strengths as well. Find what you like to do. I really appreciate, Ted, you talking about your small business, your small business, because I think that is such a way forward for so many in our community, is to own our own business.
Absolutely.
And so that's another pathway, right? But I would just say that, know that you can do it. You really can. And it might be harder than other people. You might have to fight longer, but you can do it. And I really do feel like the sky's the limit. Like, I want to keep going, right? And who knows where I'll end up or where we'll all end up. But I think, I found work to be really rewarding, and especially the part about helping to change laws. And so, find your passion, know that you can do it. Don't take any shit from anyone. You got this.
I honestly love all of you guys' answers. I'm just going to start off with that. But I think as you guys were talking, focus. So advocacy is a huge one. You deserve to advocate for yourself. I think that's something that I was afraid to do. I didn't want to be a burden stepping into a career. But I realized that our voices can be so loud and they're so deserving to be heard. And it also educates your peers because they don't know what they don't know. But when you're advocating for yourself and you're providing them with education, then they do know. And that's when you can really start holding them accountable by being like, I already told you this, I deserve this, and you know that, and just keep holding them accountable to what you deserve. So I always say, like, you can give them grace, but you can also hold them accountable. That's the most perfect combination in my mind. So yeah, there was more, but I'm gonna leave it there.
All right. The next question is, how have you navigated the process of requesting reasonable accommodations at work? Any tips that you can share? Tracy, do you want to go first, and then I'll go, and then Matt?
Sure. So in my first job, I just asked my direct supervisor and the superintendent of the agency that I was working for, and they didn't have any problem with buying me a zero gravity chair. They just gave me the credit card and sent me to Walmart, and I bought it. The next job was way more cumbersome. It was a much bigger agency, and I was one of the first people they hired to do a professional job with a disability in quite a while. And they thought that they were going to spend a whole bunch of money to give me a reasonable accommodation, and they bought me this monstrosity of a chair, and I didn't even get to sit in it before they bought it for me, and it shows up in my office, and it was like the most uncomfortable thing I had ever sat in. So I just went back to my supervisor and I said, it's not going to work. You guys just spent $3,000 that could have went to the people I serve instead. Can we go back to the $50 solution I suggested? And they gave me the $50 solution I suggested. And that chair sat there for like another 2 years before they found any sort of use for it. It was just ridiculous. And then my current job, I actually work at home. So, and all employees are required to provide their own office equipment. Not equipment, but like desks and chairs and stuff like that. So if I need a zero gravity chair, I can just use my own. And then I also recently requested a reasonable accommodation of sometimes having my aides drive me to and from some of my meetings that are an hour away. And I was expecting a lot more like bureaucratic stuff to need to happen with that. And it was literally one email, hey, can I do this? And like 5 minutes later, HR wrote back, yep, we cleared it with the executive director, no problem. You don't have to let us know like on a regular basis if they're doing that. That still stuns me to this day that there weren't more like paperwork or hoops to jump through, so.
Yeah, so I've had many experiences asking for reasonable accommodations, and a lot of them just came up in the moment. Like there was one time I was working at a bank and we were doing a fire drill, and the door that they wanted me to get out of, they didn't have like a curb cut out, and I had to like roll around the whole building, and it was funny and awkward. And I just like kept thinking about if there was a real fire, I would just curb hop, like, I'm getting out of here. Like, you look at me. So, you know, things like that, right? Trying to go to the bathroom, realizing the dispenser is not accessible. But there was also one time at the same bank, but a different job, where they had like a whole 5-level parking garage, and they only had automatic door openers for the first level, and I worked at a later time. And so by the time I got there, all those accessible spots in the first level were taken. And so I had to fight really hard, actually, to get them to put automatic door openers at every level, because wouldn't that make sense? Too much sense, apparently. And so I remember asking the person I was directed to, and they were just giving me the runaround, and then the front guards were telling me all the dish about what was going on and how it was going to be so expensive and how that other lady was complaining. And honestly, I just felt bold one day and just really upset. And so I looked in the directory for her boss and called her boss and said, hey, like, I've been, you know, wanting this accommodation. I'm getting the runaround. Like, this is really dangerous for me to have to, you know, exit the ramp this way. And that day they were at my office, both of them. The lady that had been avoiding me didn't even look at me the whole time. But her boss was like very much saying, I'm sorry, yes, we're making this right, we're gonna do this. Again, I had that confidence because I knew the law, and I knew that what I was asking for was very reasonable. And I knew that there were other people that were struggling as well, and so I got that accommodation. And I would just say again, you know what your rights are, you know, obviously be respectful, and like you were saying, hold them accountable, right? And you know, ableism is alive and well and in our world, unfortunately. And I would just hate for anyone to feel like they're a burden for needing an accommodation. I think anybody, no matter if you identify as disabled or not, should have access to accommodations that make our work in life easier. So yeah, and there's really wonderful websites like the Job Accommodation Network that has all types of resources that professionals, and you can send your HR person there. And they've got a lot of great ideas. And the last piece of advice, I would say, if you know already what you need, to really advocate like that. Like you were saying, Tracy, you knew what chair worked for you. You didn't need the $300 chair. I would say as much as you can to be confident in what you need. I think that helps the other person that's trying to help you, because oftentimes they're not disabled. They don't have that lived experience. They're acting like all funny and weird around you, and you know. And so I think the more confident you can go in with, this is what I need and this is why, the better.
I've actually requested most of the accommodations I've ever requested in the past year or so. I'm having a hard time pulling up any that I requested for my own self, but when I came back to the school, there were things that I used to just put up with that I no longer want to, because there are students who would benefit from this stuff. And I realized that I am in a position to demand certain things now, and probably was then too, but things that would be helpful for some of my students. So I fought them on getting soap dispensers put lower in. And our facilities manager just said, like, what, are you looking for soap bottles? And I said, yeah, actually that would be a good start. Like, I mean, I don't care if it's a push thing on the wall or not, and lo and behold, they did put the push things on the wall, and I don't think they ever got around to soap bottles. Putting automatic waivers on to enter 2 of our door suites. I got pushback with, well, we're not using one for anybody's office right now, and the other one was, well, who else needs it, and isn't there somebody there fairly often? I kept making noise. Some people came over from the main administration. They didn't seem all that jazzed either, talking about how they had a limited amount of budget, but maybe they could look at doing this and look at the blueprints, and I don't know if it's technologically feasible. And then like 3 months later, they were both done. So I don't know how this is all working, but somehow making this noise, I didn't get the sense that I got some super friendly supervisor who showed up to fix it. I left thinking like, well, I'm gonna be complaining about this again in 6 months, and lo and behold, it was done. So I don't know the magic of how it all happens. I do know that it happened, and I have a sense that it's because I started making noise about it. So look for those opportunities. There may be places where you may be able to help. And again, I'm not even thinking primarily of myself with any of these ones, but there are other folks who can benefit from it, and by golly, if I'm the vehicle that gets it done, that is now totally fine by me. So. and the lower soap dispensers are helpful. So.
Awesome. So that was all the written questions that we had prepared, and I know that we have a few minutes left. I just wanted to give folks a chance if they wanted to ask any questions in the audience, or questions or comments, so we'll leave time for that. Yes.
So how do you guys deal with like accommodations with this working from home era? I know for me, like I just like ask for extra time, you know, during my breaks to, you know, get food, use the bathroom. 'Cause, you know, rushing, you know, can be a trip hazard. But you know, to them, it's like, you're already at home. Why do you need the extra time? So, like, how do you guys, you know, navigate those things?
I work at home, but I am not like, my minute by minute day is not tracked. So like I'm accountable in a sense to no one at the end of my day on how many minutes I've worked. So it's really hard for me to kind of give that suggestion other than like make sure your company asks for like the policy on what their policy is for asking for reasonable accommodation. Because just because you're at home doesn't mean that you've given up your right to ask for them. I mean, your environment is still your environment. It takes you longer to do things. I've never needed to ask for anything in my home only because, like, the nature of my work is that I don't have to track every minute of my day. And I'm not sure what you do at home, but if that's the case, then I can see why you would probably need to ask for extra time. But I would ask them outright for their policy on, like, reasonable accommodation. And if you have to, go above their head, you know, go above your manager's head or actually reach out to your direct HR manager.
Another question.
Sure.
So I'm getting ready to start my certificate next month for disability studies at CMU. The path that I'm trying to take now is to be an advocate. Like I've already done advocacy at the schools I've done, and shown attention to at work and everything. But depending what doors open from the certificate, I would like to, you know, start my own practice, possibly go back for counseling to be my own therapist and have clientele with disabilities, because I know how it was for me growing up. So like what advice or what direction should I take as I, you know, do that? Because right now I'm just doing customer service and I have an associate's and a bachelor's degree, so you know I kind of want to level up now.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, how I got started out in you know, advocacy as more of a career was I took a free course called Partners in Policy Making, which it may be in your state as well because they are in most states, but it was a free course. It was like 9 months and it taught me all about advocacy at every level, from, you know, local, state level, and federal level. And it really, yeah, it got me connected to so many people who are already in the advocacy space as well. And, you know, just using your skills and volunteering at different organizations like that can be really helpful. So any disability advocacy organizations that are in your area, get connected, you know, sign up for all the newsletters that you can. I think just showing up as well, even like if it's just like a virtual place and just like making connections with people. And there's all types of scholarships and different fellowship programs that go on. And so I would really just, if you are able to get connected online, you know, look up things that are available to you in your area. And I think for me, it was just getting started. Once I got my foot in the door and I was advocating here, then someone over there would contact me. And I think it can move really fast. You just got to get in there. So go where they're doing advocacy that you're interested in, and make connections and volunteer. And that for me turned into job opportunities that I worked at a bank and 2 years later was a director. Like, it was wild. You know, things can really move fast. I think too, there's so much more need for diversity in advocacy as well, and use your lived experience. Like, you are an expert, and you have knowledge and lived experience that other people don't have. And so use that to your advantage and market yourself in that way. And I promise you, people will be knocking on your door. All right. think that it is time.
Oh, there's one more question.
Okay, one more question. Sorry, Doug.
Well, I was just wondering, with, you talked about starting your own business. Would you recommend, like, for somebody who wanted to start their own business, that they take some business classes? Or, like, if you have a child who's really passionate about graphic design, like that, do they really, don't know much about business?
So in graphic design profession, the business aspect of it, you kind of learn as you go to the different areas of it. My advice would be is to try to become as knowledgeable with your rights as an independent contractor and a graphic designer, because they do play a role with your clientele, and it varies depending on what that is it a corporation, is it a nonprofit, is it a guy that owns a garage with where they fix cars. It varies based on those different avenues. I would recommend learning as much of a business portfolio with a solid accountant, with a solid lawyer, because those are going to be the two people as a graphic designer that are going to help you make sure that you stay within the realms where you're never crossing paths with any of your clients from a business perspective.
I'd like to say something on that too. For starting a business, yes, I would think, along with what he said, but also if you could take business classes, that would help, because that would help you learn some of the business side of it. I started my own dance company when I was 20 years old, and there's many things I've learned now that I wished I knew back then, but I didn't have the business side. I had the artistic side, the dance side, but I didn't have the business side. And there's things now I know about running a dance company and running something that I wish I could have learned knew back then. So yeah, I think if you could do business, there's some good stuff for that, so yes.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today, and take care.